So last summer, I came downstairs and my girlfriend was crying on the couch. She looked at me and she said, "Steven, I think we need to break up." And at that moment, my life changed dramatically. The next few months I was kind of going through what I guess in TikTok speech would be called my villain era. So I was getting myself in shape, I was trying new hobbies, I was just really doing things to make sure that everyone around me knew that I was totally okay. I don't think at that time I realized just how I was feeling. I was dressing up a little bit. I was trying to show everyone how good I was and how things were going well for me, but underneath I knew there was just like this level of pretend. But, you know, with that, I decided one night that I'm gonna go for a run. Okay, listen. I don't really like notice people when I'm running. When I'm running, I'm usually like so far in my zone that it's gonna take like a rescue crew to get me out of it. So when I was running and I came around the block and I noticed someone looking at me, that was unusual. As I was running, I saw this homeless man, dirty hair, matted clothes, but what was weird about him was he had this brand new gray suit jacket, and even weirder still, he was staring at me the entire time, both as I ran towards him and I was running away. But, you know, I live in Bishop Arts, so I see homeless people all the time, so I didn't think too much of it at the time. The next day, I was in downtown Dallas at Jackson Beer Garden, and I was, you know, taking some photos of people, really just trying to flex my new hobbies. And I noticed that the man was across the street, staring at me. And in a weird way, it almost felt like he had been there, but he didn't show himself until I noticed. And so I pulled up my camera to my eyes, and I kind of watched him through the lens of my camera. And as I did, I felt a little bit silly. I thought, you know, maybe I should go talk to him, but to be honest with you all, I'm a little bit socially awkward. So I didn't want to walk up to him, and really if I did, what was I going to say? "Oh, hey, I saw you yesterday." And then where do I go from there? So I decided, all right, I'm gonna leave, and so I did. The next afternoon, I was at the mall shopping for some clothes for a date that I had later that week, and I was in the food court, and there he was. He was sitting at an adjacent table, and he was eating a burger. And when I saw him, I could feel my heart just start to beat. And at that moment, I knew that this wasn't a joke anymore, that it was weird because the mall was 20 miles from my house, and I thought about approaching him, and as I started to stand, and at this point, he wasn't even looking at me, he turns and we make direct eye contact, and at that moment, I knew this was a bad omen. It's like when you're on a roller coaster as a kid, and you get up about a quarter of the way up there, and you realize at that point that there's nothing that you can do. You just need to grip on and hold on and wait for it to be over. And in that fear, in that dread, I just decided I needed to get out of there. So I grabbed my food, I leave, and I remember as I was leaving the mall, I was gripping the steering wheel so hard that it left a bruise. I kept seeing him everywhere. The next day, I saw him at the farmer's market. And then the day after that, I saw him in Uptown, near McKinney. Each time that I saw him, it wasn't just like a passing, oh, there he is. He made eye contact with me. We were there in that moment together, and I knew that he knew that I knew. And that was terrifying for me. When I was thinking about it at the moment, I was wondering, how could this possibly happen? How could he possibly be here? And I was hoping that just I would never see this man again. And so the next day, I was in Legacy West. So that's up north. And I thought, surely, I'll never see that man up here. So I went on a date. That's why I was buying those new clothes. He was great. We had a lot of fun. We had drinks, we laughed, and honestly, I felt like happier than I had in a long time. And as we were saying our goodbyes in the parking lot, I noticed a man down at the far end. And I got in my car and I was watching him as I did. And I started the engine, and the man turned slightly, and I realized it's him. Some of his features were obscured by, just the distance and the other cars, but I tell you, I could pick this man's face out of the police lineup. I knew it was him. And I'll be honest with you guys, I was scared to confront him. Because at this time, he didn't feel like a man. He felt like a dangerous animal, wild and unpredictable. Honestly, I thought that the next thing that was going to happen was I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night and he's going to be there with a knife or a meat cleaver, and he's going to come back to finish what he started the day before. And so I decided I'm not going to approach him. And every time I saw him, there's this feeling. It's like when you're in the ocean and you see a shadow and you think, is that a shark? And at that moment, you suddenly realize how vulnerable and helpless and scared you really are and how you really feel. And as I was leaving that parking lot, and I chose an exit, of course, that didn't drive by him, I wondered how I was going to handle this. And the next morning, I decided I was going to have to call the police. Now, I didn't tell my friends about any of this that was happening because I didn't want anyone to think that I wasn't stable or that I wasn't capable. And honestly, in a certain way, I didn't really think anyone was going to believe me. And in that same note, when I thought about calling the police, I didn't think the police were going to believe me. Honestly, I didn't even know what to say. So I decided I'm going to grab an energy drink from CVS, I'm going to grab a Red Bull, and that'll help me think. So as I'm crossing the street, the CVS conveniently is across the street from my apartment. I see the DART train in the corner of my eye. DART train runs through my neighborhood, and in the window, I can see the man is there. But this time, he's not looking at me. And here I am in the parking lot of the CVS, looking at him through this window, and I was staring so hard that I thought that he was going to notice me, or just feel me looking at him, but he doesn't. And I also was struck by the same weird sense that everyone around me, everyone that's going about their day, for them, this is just a normal day, this is a normal moment, but between me and this man, and him not even noticing me, it felt so powerful and so potent and so abnormal that it shook me. And I couldn't take my eyes off of him for the entire time, so I watched as this train with this man slowly pulls away, and with it, he was gone. So that's my story. I never saw him again. And, I never went to the police either. And you may ask yourself, why? Why wouldn't you go to the police, Stephen? And it's weird to explain. I felt like he and I were in this together. In a weird way, it's like when you see a shooting star and you think, I'm the only one in the world who saw that. There's this special bond, but instead of wonder and excitement, I was just fear and dread and paranoia. And after that scenario, not too long after that, I met a girl and we fell in love. And unfortunately, that relationship ended, but in that breakup, I learned that loneliness is not just this thing that you have to live with. It's a feeling, but of course, it's something that can pass, that you can find ways to connect with other people and let it go. And I thank both my ex-girlfriend and then, I guess in a weird way, the stalker for teaching me that. But I do want to say, man with the jacket, if you ever somehow hear this story or see the recording of this story, stay the fuck away from me. Thank you.